Okay. Hello everyone, my name is Jean-François from the HEC Montreal. And today I'll talk to you about the Quebec's energy transition. And my guiding question is, are social innovation and biogas the keys to unlocking Quebec's energy transition? I got into this when I heard about this alarming statistic. We want to maintain our increase of global average temperature by 1.5 degrees Celsius. We all need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, everyone. So look at what position Quebec was in, and we are actually the third highest energy consumer per capita in the world for a state. That is huge. I dug a little bit deeper and discovered that renewable energy is actually 45% of the energy consumed, although we produce 99% of renewable energy. 15% of it actually is from natural gas, and most of it is used for heating. And these 500,000 plus consumers that are hooked on natural gas emit a total of 12% of our greenhouse gas emissions. That also is a very high rate of greenhouse gas emissions. Additionally, when I search a bit more about our greenhouse gas sources, another 12% comes from organic waste, organic waste that goes to landfill, or organic agriculture practices. So in total, 24% of our greenhouse gas emissions come only for heating and eating. Luckily, there's a solution. If you replace 2/3 of this natural gas by biogas, we could actually reduce by 20% our greenhouse gas emissions. And this is worth actually a $1.6 billion market, so there's a lot of incentive. And that 20% represents 50% of our 2030 goal of greenhouse gas emission reduction for the entire state or province of Quebec. So there is a lot of leverage. Now, why does this concern me, or why does this affect me? Well, I realized that I was raised in a house that was heated by natural gas. And so until the day I moved out at 20, I was destroying the environment I was raised on. And so I asked myself, well, what future will I raise my kids in? Now, this is the chain of value for biogas and what we need. And none of this actually is happening. We have a lot of barriers. So first of all, people are not really using their brown bin for organic waste collecting. And even if we did, there aren't enough trucks to pick it all up. And even if there were, there aren't enough biogas plants, and therefore there is no supply. Now, in order to have this supply, we would need a $20 billion upfront investment to have all this infrastructure, but no one will do that because the return on investment will take way too long. And in terms of biomass energy, governance is really divided on it. There are many ministers that take care of this, and the load of responsibility goes onto the municipalities, and municipalities don't necessarily have the expertise, and so it's just really hard for everyone to get into the biogas. There's also no social acceptability for biogas because, well, we have natural gas, it's cheap and abundant. We also have hydroelectricity, which is also very cheap and abundant, so why should we go into that? There's nothing in for the citizen, but also nobody wants a biogas plant in their backyard because it's nice. And finally, there's no sense of urgency because, well, we live in a land filled with abundance, and so why should we accelerate the energy transition? How did we get here? In the 1950s, we invested massively in natural gas, and ever since there has been an increase in demand and in supply. It has been stable, therefore becoming cheap, abundant, and reliable. Same thing for hydropower. Quebec in the 1960s invested massively in hydropower. It is cheap, it is abundant, it is reliable, and so why turn to biogas? Additionally, we are exporting our hydroelectricity to the United States, and in total, the Quebec government gets $4 billion in revenue from this. And on a global scale, well, if we look at Alberta, where our natural gas comes from, it is the equivalent of $2 billion market, and the international market wants Canadian natural gas because, one, they are looking to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions because natural gas produces less greenhouse gas than fuel and coal. But also Europe is looking to divest from Russian supply, and this is for geopolitical reasons. And so when we look at the roadmap for biogas, it is very complicated because we have two dominant systems that are in place. In sum, if you invest in natural gas, you make money, and if you invest in biogas, you're just going to lose a lot of money. Luckily, there is hope. Here in Quebec, we have our most recent biogas plant, it's Saint-Hyacinthe, and it is truly a social innovation. They created a regional cluster where everybody got involved in building a circular economy. And because of that, the city reduces its energy bill and reinvests that money into city services so the citizen wins. All this is due to government investment, regulation, and the will of the industry to change their system. In Germany, they are the champions right now of energy transition, and they have done amazing strides. First, at the European level, they created what we call the Agora Energiewende, which is a think tank. And you have all these stakeholders from across the board that write these policies and that are much easier to pass. So this accelerates the energy transition. On the federal level in Germany, they created a market for biogas and renewable energy by passing laws allowing renewable energy to compete with fossil fuels. On a state level, the state of Hessen, compared with the state of Quebec, they divided their Minister of Energy into two. And the biomass energy was coupled with the Minister of Agriculture, Citizen Protection, Environment, and Climate Change. So as you can see, they harmonized the governance of biomass in the goal of getting bioenergy. And finally, the city of Frankfurt, which we could compare to Montreal, created their own energy agency, and they support and give help to developers that want to build either passive buildings or passive neighborhoods, and even a step further, making positive buildings, which means they produce energy and they can feed the grid. So in sum, what they did is that they decentralized energy production and they democratized the grid, and the citizens definitely win in this case. So we can do the same thing here. We have a lot of assets, the government has a lot of programs, and we have a very strong social weave. There's a lot of involved people, and generally people are passionate about the environment, but there are many barriers. So here are the three main leverages that I've pinpointed. The biggest one is your citizen. If you empower them and you give them the tools and you give them something to gain, they will definitely hop on board. We need to harmonize governance so that bioenergy gets the investment from different ministers so it can be considered as a natural resource, and it can get all the funding it needs so we can finally implement the infrastructure. And finally, laws and regulations are a great tool to either push people to divest from natural gas, but also to encourage people to get into renewable energies, which, by the way, have a higher return on investment on the long term. And so this, as you can see, will create leverage, and we can put in place a positive feedback loop. And this is more into a circular economy, whereas right now we are more into a linear economy. What will this do? We will have an increase in energy autonomy, and our economic system will be closer to being adaptable to climate change. And at the same time, we will reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we will reduce bio-waste, and we will also, we should also get into a mentality of degrowth to limit the idea that the more bio-waste I produce, the more money I will make. So we also need to keep that in mind. Now, I learned a lot of things during the past 5 months. There are two key lessons I think everyone should bring back with them. First of all, the energy transition is not about avoiding an environmental crisis, it's about avoiding an economic crisis where our energy supply is right now reliable on a finite resource. And finally, it's about transition of market share. We want to go from a centralized power production to a decentralized power production and allow people to feed the grid. And so what I will do to push this work further is I will turn it into my master's thesis. I've only scratched the surface, even if I deep dive into this. And luckily for me, I was able to find 2 supervisors who are willing to supervise my project. And what can you do? You can definitely do your share. You can reduce your energy consumption. You can push organizations to go in this direction. You should also champion any cause for the environment that you care for. And mostly it's about being positive and about being proactive. And this is for our kids. Thank you very much.